Just know when I drink out of this cup, it means I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good mood because of what took place 24 hours ago. This management tried to cut corners in the summer transfer window by bringing in guys who clearly were just not good enough to play for us. When in reality, this was the transfer market that us fans deserve. And I'll give their management their flowers for righting their wrongs and biting the bullet on mistakes that they've made and making up for the disaster class that they've brought upon themselves. And I just want to get straight into this. So guys, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and get involved in the comment section below. But let's start off with the departures, players that left the club during this month, and starting with Luca Romero. And this one's a kind of tricky one because he couldn't really get a foothold at all in this team with Pioli, and even with Fonseca, he turned him down as well. And he was loaned out to La Liga, then permanently sold this month to Cruz Azul in Liga MX for around 3.5 mil, which is pretty decent. And the potential was there, but he never really showcased it, only in that one preseason game versus Real Madrid, which it was cool because I was there when he scored that banger. And realistically, he was never going to compete with Pulisic or Chukwueze for that right wing spot. So he was shipped out this month, respectfully so. Now the Scudetto champion, Ballo Toure, and the one that remains closely to us solely just because of the fact he scored that one goal versus Empoli. But Ballo Toure just straight up released, and it's clear to see why, and there's not really much to really say about Ballo Toure, to be honest, other than thanks for the Scudetto, really appreciate your time at the club. But one player that I was extremely optimistic about coming this year was Alvaro Morata. And with this signing, like I said, I was extremely optimistic, but coming in off of a hot Euros win, captaining Spain to a victory, I thought he was going to give us some sort of leadership role, or maybe just offering something similar to what Giroud was, because they're similar profiles, right? Poachers, kind of fox in the box type players. But the truth of the matter is that Morata would drop so deep into the midfield. There was no presence up top for us to be that reference point in attack. And it was so frustrating week in and week out to see Morata play for us. And on top of that, just his output was terrible as well. Like I said, not offering anything going forward. And I think what led to his sale was not only those things as well, but his relationship with Conceição. And reports were saying that he was a toxic locker room presence. So I think that plays a huge hand in it as well. And a player that also didn't get along with Conceição was Davide Calabria. And this is an interesting one because the fan base was split on this one, because some were saying he deserved a better send-off or he should have stayed at the club as a depth piece. But I agree to some point, but I was on the side of the fan base where he was clearly not good enough to play in this team and he should have been sold. And there was that constant discussion of how terrible our right-hand side was, whether it was either Emerson or Calabria. And yes, Davide Calabria was there in the peak banter era, and he's seen it all, right? But the truth of the matter is that he was not starting caliber for Milan. And if you look at our last game versus Inter, we seen what a competent right back looks like in Kyle Walker. So for me, Davide Calabria, he had to go. I really appreciate his time at the club, humble servant and everything like that, loyal to the club, but it was his time to go. And I think Bologna suits the level that he plays at. And Noah Okafor had a lot of great moments in a Milan shirt, to be completely honest. And that one Udinese goal pops into my head. But I think the phrase that comes to mind when you kind of think of Okafor is that availability is the best ability. And Okafor was never fit for the most part. And he was never really able to be relied upon to stay fit and be a squad player and a rotation piece. And we've seen glimpses of what he can offer and what he could potentially give us. But fitness, I think, was the main issue for Milan. And we just had to part ways respectfully and possibly make a profit off of this. And I know he has an option to buy from Napoli for 25 million. And I think Forlani maybe snuck a little thing in his contract where if he does get injured at Napoli, then they're forced to pay that 25 mil. So if that's a thing, Forlani, you're a genius and I respect your game. But lastly, the player that we're going to cover here that departed Milan this month was Ismail Benacer. And this guy, he was a fan favorite for a majority of the fan base. And yeah, he had kind of like that toxic end, right? He had that really bad performance versus Juventus and Inter in the Super Cup. But the level that we seen Benacer play in a Milan shirt in that midfield with Tonali and Kessie in that Scudetto run is insane. But like Okafor's problem, Benacer struggled with injuries and he can never really bounce back to that form that we seen him play at the peak of his powers, right? Make no mistake, Benacer was in those conversations for best midfielder in Serie A because of his importance that he brought to us. He was a main pillar in those Milan teams when he was, at his peak. But when you take all things into account, number one, his value was going down. He was in his late 20s. Number two, his injury problems. And number three, he did request to be sold at the end of the day for reasons we're not really sure about. But for 10 million for Benacer, I'll take that any day of the week. So Isma, thank you for your awesome memories. Good luck in Marseille, my friend. Now, the players that we saw get brought in this month were names that we should have seen get brought in during the summer window. And maybe not these names specifically, but just quality, right? And like I said earlier, this management really tried to cut corners. This management paid exactly for what they got for, and that was mediocrity, right? And first one, it comes to mind, Emerson Royale. And look at the upgrade we got, Kyle Walker. He's played one game and he's shown more than Emerson and Calabria to that extent. And his leadership qualities is something that I think is really going to help this team, as it's been screaming for leadership, some leadership figure, someone that the players can kind of look up to for guidance and motivation. And on top of that, his organization in that defense is something that we saw in the derby, and it was a beautiful thing to see. And being solid at that right back spot as well is something that refreshing, and it's something that we couldn't have been confident in this whole season. And also, I think being in locker rooms previously at Manchester City, where he's won trophies. I think he won 17 trophies, being a main component in those Pep Guardiola teams. So having that experience as well is so big, I think, for this Milan locker room. And there was that whole conversation about Kyle Walker or Rashford coming in. And I was on the Kyle Walker side of things in that conversation just because of how desperate we were on that right-hand side. And of course, there were talks about Walker not being good and he's kind of washed and he's on the wrong side of 30 and everything like that. But after that first game versus Inter, in a big moment to announce yourself in a Milan shirt, I think it's safe to say Kyle Walker is far from washed. And we've been crying for a proper all-around striker. We paid a bag for Santi Jimenez, and it took a while because we had Morata, Giroud, Zlatan, Piontek, Andre Silva, either one-season wonders like Piontek or old degrading players like Ibra and Giroud who were mobily limited. We never really invested big in a striker since Piontek. So this acquisition of Santi is really exciting. And I've heard a lot of great things from Mexico fans saying that his ceiling is high and all that, and how he's an all-around striker. But to be completely honest here, he wasn't the number one name that I wanted for striker, to be honest. Obviously, I would have liked maybe like a Sesko type player, but that is, kind of in the realm of, a higher transfer fee. But what I can say is this, that at 23 years old in a squad like this, being surrounded by that much quality, Jimenez has a lot of pressure to deliver, not only for the price tag of 35 million, but also the need to perform instantly to get Milan season back on track is kind of a nerve-wracking thing for me for Santi Jimenez. And I think that he can't be any worse than Tammy or Morata for that matter, but I think that there's a lot to look forward to seeing Santi in a Milan shirt. My only concern is how does he link up play? Is he going to be a presence up top while also dragging defenders? Is he going to be able to hold up and lay off the ball to another player? These are my only concerns that I have with Santi, but I'm excited to see him underway. Now with João Felix, this is a name that I think a lot of people are excited for. And although this is a straight out loan with no option to buy, I think this has potential to be revisited in the future if João Felix does well. And I think this is a win-win for Milan, to be completely honest, because you have a talent like him surrounded by the best group of players I think he's had in his career from a link-up ability and a chance creation perspective. And I think that he can do well, to be honest. And I think we'll see that return of that 4-2-3-1. And João will most definitely be playing at that number 10 attacking mid position. And I think that's where he can thrive, playing on that half turn, being a threat in that way. And I'm just waiting for the day that João and Leao combine for that goal. And it's just going to be awesome. My only concern is his work rate. With a manager like Conceição who demands a lot from his players, he's going to demand a lot from João Felix. So at this point, it's up to him for now because he's going to get chances to play in this team. It's just a matter of how he takes these chances. And with Ricardo Sotil, I think this is strictly a depth piece and clearly a rotation player. Didn't really offer much at Fiorentina, to be honest, but I think what's good about Sotil is his work rate. So I think he'll be used in those games, kind of either coming in as a sub or that occasional start versus a lower table club if we do give Leao that rest. But he's clearly that Okafor replacement. And I think he's better than Okafor just in the fact that he's fit week in and week out. So I think that's a bonus. And this is a player that we've been flirting with for a good little while. And that's Warren Bondo. And this is a player that I've always liked at Monza, to be completely honest. And I think that he offers good work rate and close quarters dribbling. I think he is a more refined Yunus Musa type player, but he has that potential to be a profile like Camavinga. And for an outright fee of 10 million, I think we got a good player who isn't going to start, but I think he's going to be one of those players that comes off the bench first and kind of to keep that energy in the midfield. But I think being French also helps being able to adapt quickly with the likes of Mike and Theo Hernandez. But I think that we have a player with great potential if we can harness it correctly, because he was playing at a decent level in a struggling Monza team. I think that he could do a job in a great Milan team, to be completely honest. And the management left it late in this transfer window to get all these deals over the line, but the fact that they moved quickly and got these deals done while also shipping out dead weight shows that they realized the mistakes that they made in the summertime, and it showed the consequences of what cutting corners looks like. So I'm hoping that they kind of learn from their mistakes, and I'll give the flowers to the management because of from how this ownership kind of talked to the fans. It seemed like we were always going to penny pinch our way to these transfer windows, but they made a statement this month. Also, I think Conceição deserves a lot of credit for pushing this management to right their wrongs and act like a proper football establishment after what we've seen in the last 3 months, right? With the fan protests at the 125th anniversary party, the sacking of Fonseca, and the morale of the team just being at an all-time low. I said in a previous video that it looked like a disaster that we could not come back from, but now it looks like that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe. And what do you guys think about our transfer window? Would you guys rate it out of 10? And let me know what you guys think about the players that you like the best. Guys, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. This has been Vincenzo, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.